Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Who is Who in America on Alhikmat TV 24/7 online. Today we have with us in Alhikmat studio Mr. Chris Koval. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, Sheikh. I'm glad to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you with us. And for viewers out there, Chris Koval is a very interesting person. He has an interesting background, so stay tuned as we continue this conversation with him. He is the founder and owner of Inside Publication, which runs a magazine presently called Inside Myrma and Pembroke Pines. And these are two cities here in Florida in the United States of America for you viewers who are viewing worldwide. Koval is also running to be the commissioner for Seat 1 in Miramar City. So we're going to continue this conversation with Chris Koval, a little bit about his background and what motivated him to run for this position.
Fens, the single largest specialty retailer of residential and office furniture, consumer electronics, home appliances, and household items in Trinidad and Tobago. At Fens, we offer a large selection of high-quality products, honest and reliable service. We are passionate about serving you, and we're proud of the standard of excellence upheld by our knowledgeable staff, friendly delivery teams, and dedicated customer care associates. Visit Fens First, your friendly furniture, appliance, and electronic dealer since 1960.
For all of your forwarding and freight shipping needs, we at Trin Forwarding International are committed to product delivery. At Trin Forwarding, we have the much needed experience, professionalism, and due diligence in freight forwarding, shipping, and cargoes. We deliver with timeliness and precision. You can reach out to us at our Caribbean office in Trinidad and Tobago, telephone number 868-624-6250, or our Florida USA office at 305-887-9725.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from originally?
Perfect. So, I was born in Pennsylvania.
From the cold
and in the coal region. My family were coal miners, but my dad used to visit down here when he was a kid, and he got what they say, the sand in his feet. So, as soon as he was old enough to leave Pennsylvania in the cold weather, my brother was 3, I was 2, and they moved to Dania, Hollywood in Dania.
Interesting.
So, when he had started a window business, so he was a gentleman that used to work 6 a.m. He'd be gone in the morning when my mom took us to school, and he'd come back at 6 o'clock at night. And him and his partner had a small little window company, and installed windows for a living. So he did pretty well with it, and we grew up in Dania Beach. Went to elementary and high school in Hollywood. But I'm 54. I've been here 52 years. So Broward my entire life.
Your entire life. What motivated you to get into publications? And I want to say that because I love publications and journalism also. So we have something very much in common. Tell us a little bit about your company.
Yep. So I wanted to get into media. So after I graduated high school, I went to local Broward Community College, but I wanted to get into radio and television. So I went to a trade school in Fort Lauderdale called Brown Institute for Radio and Television. And that was a 1-year accredited course for 9 straight months. And then after I finished there, I was a disc jockey and I was on the radio. So I was in Boca, I was in Cocoa Beach, and I stayed in radio for a few years. When I was in Cocoa Beach, the money was terrible. You're a young kid making $150 a week.
Wow.
Working overnights or the night shift. And I turned back around and moved back to South Florida and got into other professions through the 90s. But then it took a turn in the early 2000s when there was a radio station launching here in South Florida called 790 The Ticket. And it was a sports station that was going to compete against 560 WQAM because they really never had any competition. So I was the first sales rep that was hired with 790 The Ticket with Joe Rose, Dan Lebitard, and I worked there for 7 years, sales, one of the top salespersons in the company. So that's how I got into media and sales and advertising. And I loved it because we were helping businesses grow their business by getting their message out to the masses. So then what happened with radio take, with all the different platforms and the internet and Sirius and satellite, I just decided I wanted to move in a different direction. So I started, my buddy of mine in West Miami, in Kendall, South Miami, had a couple magazines that he launched. And he said, Chris, the one thing you can do is sell. You're not scared to knock on doors, even though it says no soliciting.
Right.
You still go in and try to, that's the whole point of all this. So I did it with them for a couple of years. And then I said, you know what? I can do my own magazine. The hardest part is actually meeting business owners, finding decision makers, and asking them to buy your product and explaining it to them. I know how to put I could put a publication together. I have relationships with Pines and Miramar city officials, and I, found a wonderful graphics designer to help me with the publication. So we launched it about 4 years ago. We were doing one just in Miramar, mailing to all of Miramar, and it was going okay. But then what I decided to do is combine two cities into one publication and mail to all of Pines and Miramar west of Flamingo Road. All of the gated communities, because still an effective way to reach those folks is through the mail.
Of course.
You have to get in the mail. They have gated communities. You're getting it in the mail for them to look at it and then react and see all the businesses and use coupons and read about our elected officials, because I have content in the publication.
A lot of people ask me, why don't I go full-time online? And I always tell people the same thing. There are a lot of people out there who love to get a hard copy,
That's right,
original magazine, sit back, relax with a cup of coffee, or if they're traveling,
Yep.
if, you know what I mean, or they're on vacation.
Yep.
And they will take their magazines and sit back and relax and go through things. People just love that. Yes, you got that group of people who everything they do is on a phone, on a computer, but you cannot forget the masses who love to read a magazine or still traditionally read the newspaper. You cannot, throw them out.
correct.
Throw them out totally and ignore them. And that's a powerful audience. That's a powerful audience that love to read. So talking about that and going into your career, what motivated you to get into politics?
Well, as a Miramar resident, my wife and I moved to Miramar. We were living in our nice little condo in Weston, and we started having a family. And the condo wasn't going to hold a family. So we drove around, 16 years ago, and we were coming up on Miramar Parkway, and we went over I-75, and we're driving and driving and driving, and we're seeing all these beautiful communities. So we kept going and going until Miramar Parkway literally ended into this community called Sunset Lakes. And it was a weekend.
Beautiful community.
Yep, thank you. And there was a sign up for an open house. We weren't even looking for homes that day, but we went in, the open house, we were able to get into the gate, and we fell in love with the house, the backyard, the kitchen my wife loved. She's Peruvian, she loves to cook, and we put an offer in the house. So that was in 2005 or 6, I think 6. And that's how we became a Miramar resident, and I started living my life in Miramar with our family. Then subsequently we had 2 daughters. So the house is perfect, and we have our 2 daughters that we had that are now 15 and 11. So as far as getting involved in the politics, when you're living in a community, when you're living in a city, and I had relationships with elected officials vis-a-vis the magazine, and if there's people that get involved, there's people that see things or want to make change, or they see things that possibly they don't feel are right, or what some elected officials are doing which they don't agree with. We have the ability to either go to commission meetings, voice our opinions, and that's one level that you can do. Or you could actually say, you know what, have a real deep conversation with your spouse or internally and say, listen, this is going to be a huge sacrifice. I know it's not going to be easy, especially running up against an incumbent commissioner, but it's something that if you really put 150% and a full passion and people see that, then it's something that you can make happen. So there were things going on in the city that I didn't agree with, things that he was doing. And back, coincidentally enough, back in March, 2 days before the pandemic, before they kind of locked us down, I announced on the Next Door Neighbors app that we have out west, which has a massive following of neighbors that communicate with each other. I announced that I was running for commissioner, and it's taken off from there.
That is interesting, because I see in your magazine you have a lot of articles by commissioners and the mayors, etc. And that is phenomenal, and I'm sure that you got a lot of ideas and a lot of reasons behind that, in what you hear, what you see, that you have realized that you can do, maybe in some cases, of course, a lot better than what is presently being done. Well, you know, time just goes and time just goes. We have been talking for more than 10, 12 minutes now. So when we come back after the short break, we want to concentrate on this seat 1 as commissioner in Myrma City. How you go about voting for you in this position, whether you can do mail-in ballots, you know, all the different kind of changes, what you hope to change when you become commissioner. And I don't want to say if, but I'm saying when, and what area do you cover. We want to discuss all these different areas so viewers will have a better idea that when they vote for you, what they expect to get from voting for Chris Koval. So stay tuned. When we come back after the short break, we'll continue this conversation with Chris Koval, who is running for seat 1 as Myrma Commissioner, Myrma City Commissioner here in Florida. Stay tuned as we continue the conversation with him.
Assalamu alaikum. Allah gives hikmat, wisdom, to whomsoever He wills. And whomsoever is given wisdom is certainly given a lot of good. Only the people of understanding will benefit from the reminder. Tune in to Alhikmat TV for khutbahs, lectures, and Islamic reminders. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to Who is Who in America on Alhikmat TV 24/7 online. Again, it's a pleasure to have with us in Alhikmat studio Chris Koval, and welcome back to the show.
Thank
Chris.
you, Sheikh.
And those of you who have just tuned in, Chris Koval is a journalist. He's a man who loves media. He's the owner of Inside Publications and runs a magazine called Inside Myrma and Pembroke Pines. Presently is the candidate for seat 1. Seat 1 is a commissioner of Myrma City. So stay tuned as we continue this conversation with Chris Koval on as to why he is so much involved in running for this position, what is the interest, the challenges, etc. behind this position. So let us start off with the first question. When we talk about seat 1, like other cities, what area does that cover?
Okay, great question. And one of the most important questions when I'm out there knocking on doors or campaigning, that people ask, they don't know that if you're elected commissioner in Miramar, you're actually elected the commissioner of the whole city. Some cities in Broward County have districts. Our neighbors in Pembroke Pines, if you run in a certain district where you live and you have a section of the city that you oversee, and then that's how those cities run their cities. In Miramar, we have a very long city, not very wide, but it's very long. It's 12 miles from State Road 7 all the way out to where I live in Sunset Lakes.
Right.
And if you're elected for either seat 1, 2, 3, or 4, or the mayor, you are the mayor or the commissioner for the entire city. A lot of people have said to me they did not know that, and they would like to see that changed in the future.
Because you know what is interesting about that? The fact that when you run for the entire city, the election can be very competitive. Very competitive because of the fact it's the entire city people got the choice of voting.
Correct.
As well as when you run for a certain district, you can just concentrate on that district.
Absolutely
So it
correct.
makes the running for the position easier. But it On the other hand, it makes the job more difficult because you got to look at managing areas of responsibilities for the entire city as opposed to a little district. So it's a very challenging position, huh?
Yes, and there's different needs
Yeah.
from the historical east side of Miramar to the central to the west. So if you had elected officials that were living in that district, they could oversee and be the champion of causes inside of that district. Now, of course, if I'm elected, or when I'm elected, Sheikh, you'll do everything you can to represent and help everybody in Miramar, and that'll obviously be my goal. But if we had districts similar to Pembroke Pines, I think that those folks that represent the districts and their folks that live in those areas, I think it's more effective.
Of course.
So the other thing that people, as I'm out there knocking on doors and I'm talking to people about the election coming up, and they look at me and go, coming up? We just had an election in November. They don't even realize that we have our Miramar City elections in March.
That's important. What date in March?
It's March 9th. It's a Tuesday. So it's fascinating to see people's faces when they see me. What's this guy doing? I'm not going to passing out my information, trying to talk to them, see what their concerns are. And a lot of folks don't even know that we have our elections this time of year, where a lot of cities have theirs during the presidential election. So there's two things. You have great voter turnout because people are going out for other initiatives or voting for other
Right,
things.
they might as well drop their ballot for you one time.
Correct. And they also, it costs the city money to set up these elections. There's only a handful of cities in Broward. I think there might be 6 or 7 out of about 30 cities that actually have their elections in March. It's costing the cities to set up all these precincts and have poll workers and all what they have to do. So it's an expense that it's
So
costing.
is that something you may be looking at?
Absolutely.
Adjusting when you get into position?
Now listen, these have been these policies of districts or not districts, or when we have our elections, have been in the city charters for a long time. It's a process.
Right,
But
right.
it's something that I'm just speaking for the people I talk to. Those have been two things. Why don't we have districts? And also, why do we have our elections in March?
So what are some of the changes that you would like to see in the city of Myrma when you become a commissioner?
Yep, I think.
And I like to use the word when, not if.
Thank
Let's
you,
be very
thank you.
positive. When.
I think the biggest thing that I feel with my opponent and what I want to bring to this position is honesty, integrity, and accountability. And what do I mean by that? Those are great words to use, and anybody could use those. But I don't think that we've had a lot of honesty, or we don't have integrity right now with that position and that current elected official. And I think that he loves looking out for his best interests and promoting himself the best that he can. I think always with the ultimate goal of securing votes from people. I don't think a lot of it comes from his heart, because the self-promoting and self-campaigning is endless. And as an incumbent as he is, he has the resources and the tools of the city to continuously be doing that. And there's things that have come up that we've kind of exposed, and trying to educate the folks out there that are eligible to vote with issues that happened several years ago with allegations and settlements that the city actually settled on his behalf when it came to former employees.
So you're trying to get this honesty and this integrity into the city.
Correct.
That you think that it has lost in certain areas.
Correct. In particular, the seat I'm running for.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing that I think is very important for the viewers to understand with Miramar. You literally have to pick the person you want to run against.
Oh.
Right? That's exactly the reaction I get from folks as well. So we have 3 seats that are up for grabs on March 9th. I could have picked between 2 of the other seats, but you have to pick the person you want to run against. So, for instance, my friends, I have elected a friend, good elected official that is elected in Dania Beach. They had 3 seats up in November, but they literally will take the 3 highest voters. Say there's 12 people that run for the 3 seats in Dania.
Right.
Whoever gets the 3 highest votes wins. So those 3 folks they'll say, okay, Marco, you're now the commissioner of seat 1 in Dania, and Miss Davis, you're the commissioner of seat 2, because they receive the 3 highest votes.
Right.
In Miramar, I'm running against Chambers, or my opponent, and then another young lady, and whoever gets the most votes just from the 3 of us will be the winner. There's 4 other people running for seat 3 and 2 people running for seat 2. So you have to pick the person you want to run against.
Right.
Which
right.
is odd in itself. I could end up with, let's say out of the 12 candidates that are running for this March election in Miramar, I could get the second highest amount of votes in Miramar. Let's say Max ends up, or vice versa. Let me take a positive spin. I end up getting the most votes. And then there's a young lady in seat 3 gets the second most, and then another person gets the third amount, but they don't beat the guy that is currently in, they're not going to win. So it's you know, I could get 5,000 votes and win, and the young lady who's running in our seat could get 4,000. The other 2 seats may not even get that, but she's not going to be an elected official.
So that brings me to the point. What are some of the challenges you face in running for this position?
Raising money.
You're kidding.
Because you're campaigning in an entire city. So a lot of folks don't realize the
It's not like this one district that you concentrate on, and you can really get the funds to benefit the people of that district.
Correct.
Oh, it's split into the entire city.
Yep. So I need to be campaigning from east to west with billboards and yard signs and direct mail pieces, doing stuff like
That
this.
brings me to the other point of mail-in ballots. What's going on with that?
Okay.
You know, that's a big thing
Yes. No,
in America nowadays. So do they use mail-in ballots to vote for you?
Yes. So right now, if folks who are listening or that are local to the area, if you are an eligible voter in Miramar,
Right.
you can request your vote by mail in Broward.
And how do they request this?
You go to Broward, S as in Sam, E-O, Supervisor of Election, SOE.org. And right there, you can request your mail-in ballot. You have until February 27th, or if you go to kovalcares.com, our candidate website, I have the link to the Supervisor of Elections.
So have you mailed out this link to people's home?
Yes, we're in the process of doing that. We're in the process of doing it through Nextdoor. And we have been knocking on doors, letting them know it's time now to get your vote by mail ballot. Now again, folks that requested it for the other elections, they have 2 years that they'll be getting it mailed to them. So I've talked to folks that has said, Chris, you're good to go. We've already going to get ours because they requested it for all of the elections in South Florida. Some people didn't realize that we had an election in March, and they didn't. So now they're going on and letting me know, hey, I requested my vote by mail. I'm getting it any day.
Interesting. That is interesting. I mean, the mail-in ballots is a very, very interesting thing. It makes life easy for people, especially with the pandemic and getting outside there and all the complications. I think that's a fantastic way to go, and it can really help and make the election much easier.
Now the good thing, Sheikh, though, is we have tons of precincts in Miramar, and this is the only thing that's going to be on the ballot, the 3 commission seats. So if you do decide to go on March 9th from 7 to 7, you'll be in and out. You literally, by the time your car cools off, you'll be finished and back in your car. So there's nothing else in Miramar on the ballot except for the 3 races and the 10 or 11 candidates that are running. So it's really, really quick.
So it's going to be easy. And where are some of the places that they normally use?
Sure, they use tons of the schools, all of the elementary schools, community centers.
And they will have signs, of course, up where the voting.
Yes, the day we'll be setting up signs.
Stations are.
Yep. So when you get there, if you want to get there first thing in the morning at 7 a.m. or 8 or whatever, we'll have volunteers out and our yard signs everywhere. So they're looking to focus on Chris Koval and vote.
That is fantastic. Well, you know, time just goes. Time goes and goes. So we have already been speaking for more than 10, 11, 12 minutes. So let us can you share with our viewers whatever you want to share in the next couple seconds as we conclude the segment in this program?
Yep, I
What
will.
would you like our viewers to hear? What would you like the voters to hear? And what would you expect from the voters as you run for this position, seat 1 as commissioner of the city of Myrma?
Yep, I think what the main takeaway is that I've been at it now for a year, letting people know that they have an alternative candidate, a change candidate that we can get into Miramar. We'll look out for all of Miramar, and that their voices will be heard. I want the residents' input, and I don't want to surprise them with things that constantly they're telling me, I didn't know this, I didn't know this, I didn't know you're putting a billboard up here, I didn't know that you could give yourself a pay raise without it being voted on like my opponent did. He gave himself a $10,000 pay raise last January that has a lot of residents upset. There needs to be transparency. There needs to be elected officials, again, I harp on it, but that are honest, they have integrity, and they'll be held accountable. I firmly believe that if the folks come out and vote and they're kind of sick of what he's been representing for the last 6 years, we have a great chance of winning this and representing our diverse, one of the most diverse cities, not in Broward County, in America, and that we could get some diversity into our city council that will look after everybody. And when I'm knocking on doors, the diversity is unbelievable, and folks are wanting someone to represent them.
You're right. Myrma is one of the most diverse city in the United States of America.
Yep,
That's
absolutely.
a powerful point to end on. Well, thank you very much, Chris Koval, for being with us on the show. We wish you all the best, and
Thank you.
congratulations in advance. And do remember us when you become the commissioner of Myrma City. Stay tuned for global issues on Alhikmat TV 24/7 online. We have coming up from South Africa, Catherine Constantidinis, a very well-known, world-renowned personality, humanitarian. She's considered as an earth warrior, global activist, leader of change, South Africa's change agent. So stay tuned as we discuss and connect and discuss with Catherine about her humanitarian services worldwide. Insha'Allah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. If you would like to dedicate copies of one of these publications as Sadaqah Jariyah, continuous blessings for your parents or dear ones who have passed away, or fi sabilillah, in the path of Allah, please give us a call so we can place your names on these dedicated publications. You can call us at 954-986-0158, or you can also visit us at www.alhikmat.com.
Allah is the creator of different faces. Allah is the creator of all races. Allahu, 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 Allah.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Global Issues on Alhikmat TV 24/7 online. It is indeed a pleasure to have with us on this show Global Issues. We have Catherine from South Africa. Welcome to the show, Catherine.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for having me.
It's really a pleasure. And for the benefit of our viewers there, Catherine is a very prominent person in South Africa and world renowned. She is a humanitarian. She's considered an earth warrior, global activist, a leader of change, etc., etc. So she has a very interesting background, a lot of experience in community services and social services. So stay tuned as we talk to Catherine, and to get a full name, it's Constantidinis, and I hope I did that correct, Catherine. Did I?
It was almost correct.
Almost correct?
Almost correct, but it was perfect. Don't worry.
How do you pronounce it?
Constantinides.
Constantinides. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I'll stay away from pronouncing that, but we'll keep it on Catherine, okay?
That's perfect.
Excellent. So what part of South Africa are you from exactly?
Home is Johannesburg. I live in Johannesburg, but my work takes me across the country, so I'm privileged to be able to stay in many parts of the country because of the work that I do. But I always come back home where my roots are, and that is Johannesburg.
I know Johannesburg is a beautiful place. I first visited Johannesburg in 1994. And
Wow.
yes, and then I went back sometime in maybe 2005 or something to that effect. But beautiful, beautiful, beautiful country and wonderful people.
Jazakallah.
Good.
It's a really special country and a very special part of the continent of Africa. So I'm very, very proud to come from South Africa.
And I'm very much looking forward to COVID disappearing, when we could come back and visit once more and probably join you in some of your humanitarian projects.
Absolutely. Inshallah, we will definitely do that. We have to just push through the next couple of months and perhaps, a prolonged period. But it is really important because we need to be able to get through this in order to be able to find a new norm, do things again the way that we used to, and to be able to connect in person. Because I think that the human connection can never be replaced, even by the power of technology. And I look forward to that time.
I tell people sometimes that human touch is a therapy. It has a whole different kind of therapy and healing to many problems in the world.
You are so right. That is so beautiful and so true.
That's why God created us to know one another, to understand one another, to live amongst one another, because that is a therapy, it's a healing, it removes stress and depression. Plus, one of the reasons why I think a lot of people suffer stress and depression, it's because they have disconnected from the human touch.
I couldn't agree with you more. Absolutely.
And that's why you are such a special person, because you are in a profession that gives you that opportunity to keep in touch with human beings, keep in touch with people.
No, I try to do, my work. I feel blessed and honored to do the work that I do, but I'm honestly only doing God's work. It really, really, truly is that.
Good. That is superb. So tell us a little bit on what motivated you to get into all this humanitarian services. And I read your bio. Wow, it is such an interesting bio, all your connections with United Nations and Geneva and traveling all over the world and all these social services that you have been and that you are involved in. What has really motivated you to devote this kind of time to do these human services?
No, I grew up in a very humble home. My family, we had very little, in fact, growing up. And what was really important was that I didn't know that. So growing up, I didn't know we had very little. I didn't know we came from a very, humble home. But what I did know was that we lived a life of service. I saw my father, my mother constantly doing community service, not as something that they tried to fit into their schedules, but the way that we lived as a family. And so our family would, over a weekend, we would cook food and go to an orphanage, an old age home, a quadriplegic center, and we would feed people. We would sit with people. We would play games at the old age home with the old ladies. They loved my father, so they would really want us to come every weekend to play bingo with them and do small things with them, do gardening with them. And this was the way of life of our family. I did not know that this was not something that everybody did. I just thought that this was normal and this was the kind of life that people live. And so as I grew up, that became something that organically turned into my humanitarian and climate work. I had a base where, as a young child, my father spent much time with us in our very small garden, but he taught us everything about the earth and the garden and the flowers and the beauty of nature. And I think what was very special about that was that he gave my sister and I a responsibility not only to look after and protect our garden, but to protect the earth. And I suppose subconsciously I took that to heart and literally decided that that's what I was going to do. And my work as a humanitarian and an environmentalist became something that was my path and would grow into the work that I have done over the past many years of my life.
Listening to you, you sound like Princess Diana, man.
That is a great honor. Wow.
Yeah, I think so, because those used to be some of her words and how much she, loved human services. So when I hear you say these things, wow, it is really, really interesting. You're like the Princess Diana of today, all right?
Thank you. I'll take that.
Yes, you're welcome. So, I have heard you say Assalamu alaikum and Alhamdulillah and everything like that. How have you been connected to Hafiz Zelkari Ziyad?
So, firstly, let me say that Qaari Ziyad is somebody who is very dear and special to me. He is a true brother to me. I have had the privilege to know him and come to know him through my humanitarian work.
Mm-hmm.
And as a South African, our paths have crossed many times. But I've got a very strong connection to both the Muslim community here in South Africa, but also in other parts of the world. I work extensively in Western Sahara in North Africa, and Western Sahara is a Muslim country and nation of people, and they have become my second nation. I often say, as I fight for their self-determination and their liberation and human rights, they are my people. And so the time that I spend living with them, amongst them, understanding their absolute, their daily life, their core, their struggle, their vision, their wants and needs, I have really tried to also ensure that I understand their culture, their religion, their language, in order to truly, truly be able to do what they've given me the honor to do, and that is to represent them and to be a voice for them at international platforms, the United Nations, where I constantly lobby with them, them being the freedom fighters who are my brothers and sisters. But the work has been extensive. But again, it really does start with the roots that I have here in South Africa, and I constantly do extensive outreach work with my Muslim brothers and sisters here in South Africa. Qaari Ziyad Patel is one remarkable South African, and his organization, Al-Imdad, has done incredible work. There's also the Muslim Association of South Africa that I've worked extensively with, especially in the last period of this past year, where we have tried to really drive people really rallying behind humanitarian work, because in South Africa the disparity of poverty and inequality is so huge. The amount of people who go hungry every night, and because of lockdown and COVID, that has been amplified. But the Muslim Association has done incredible work, and I'm very proud of the work done by my brothers and sisters within the Muslim community.
Well, that is incredible to know that you not only work with people all over the world, but you got that softness in your heart for Muslims and Muslim communities, etc. Time just goes listening to you and hearing your background and your kind of community and human services. Would you believe we have already been speaking for 10 minutes? I just can't believe that. Yes. But before we go, I'm going to have to take that little extra minute or two. When we come back, we'll get a little more in details, just for the benefit of our viewers worldwide, because social media and the network nowadays is very vast. So could you just in a couple of seconds let us know a little bit more about some of the countries that you have been and some of the major activities that you have done internationally?
Sure. So I've worked extensively across Africa, Southeast Asia. So in Africa, I've worked in Rwanda, Zambia, Ethiopia, Algeria, Cote d'Ivoire, and then going to Southeast Asia, Cambodia, the Philippines, Thailand. The Philippines has a very special place in my heart, and I've worked there for many, many years on community upliftment work, really grassroots level development work, and also climate work, looking at how do we ensure a climate resilient community, especially for the island nations in the Philippines. And so that work has been something very special to me for a very long time. Working on water related programs and projects, and waste. Waste has become something that I've become really focused on championing, because nobody really likes to talk about waste. However, waste is such a huge challenge within our communities. I recently, just before COVID, got to also spend some time in Azad Jammu Kashmir, and it was a really great privilege to be in Kashmir and to also understand the plight and the fight for human rights of the Kashmiri people. I've worked across the United States, across different states, and then also in South America, in Peru, Colombia, and in Alaska up north. I'm trying to think of where else. The Sahara, as I've mentioned, has got a very, very special place in my heart. And then as we look into Europe, I've had the privilege of working constantly throughout the last 5 years in Geneva. I've also worked in Germany, Austria, in France, Italy, in Greece, London, and I'm sure there's a few places I'm missing, but those ones cover the main places. I've also been privileged to do some work in Japan, but I think the community work that I do is such a privilege, because I have the opportunity to connect with human beings from different corners of our earth, and I do what I do because I realize that my humanity lies in you, the next person. There's so much that the world would like us to think that divides us. But the beauty of who we are is our differences. But when we understand that we're so connected because of being human beings, our humanness is what makes us connect to each other. When we realize that, we're able to do so much more.
Well, I'm sure that those kind of international traveling and human services, that is surely what is keeping you, with the blessings of God, keeping you stronger and looking younger.
Thank you.
It keeps you stronger and younger, definitely. I'm amazed you have done so much in the Philippines. I've been to the Philippines many times on a couple lecture tours, etc. Fantastic place, and you're right, a lot of need there for human services. Well, Catherine, when we come back after the short break, we want to continue a little more on some specifics of some of these community services and human services that you have done, and what other advice you may have to our listening audience, our viewers worldwide. What suggestions and recommendation or motivation you may want to give to them, so that a lot more people in the world can get involved in the kind of services that God has chosen you to do. So when we come back, stay tuned. And for viewers out there, we got to go on a short break, but stay tuned. When we come back, we'll continue this conversation with Catherine, a very international, well-renowned personality, a global activist and an earth warrior when it comes to humanitarian services. Stay tuned when we come back, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. Allah gives hikmat, wisdom, to whomsoever He wills. And whomsoever is given wisdom is certainly given a lot of good. Only the people of understanding will benefit from the reminder. Tune in to Alhikmat TV for khutbahs, lectures, and Islamic reminders. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
In the Quran, in chapter 5, verse 67, Allah tells the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Ya ayyuhar Rasul, balligh ma unzila ilayka min rabbik, wa illam taf'al, fama balagta risalatahu. Very deep. Allah tells the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to spread the message of the Quran. And he told the Prophet, and if you do not spread the message, you did not fulfill the mission of the messenger. So you and I are followers of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If we can afford one Quran, help us join in distributing the Quran. So if you can't afford one Quran, do it. $3. 10 Quran, $30. 100 Quran, $300. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Global Issues on Alhikmat TV. It is indeed a pleasure again once more to have with us on this show Catherine Constantidinis. I got it correct this time?
Yes.
Okay. And for those of you who have just tuned in, Catherine is a world-renowned personality, humanitarian. She's a global activist, and you would have heard before we went on the short break the many countries that she has traveled and has done human services. So not to taking away from her time, I don't want to take away from her time. I just want to go right back to Catherine so we can ask her of any special project that you, amongst the many projects in the world that you have been involved in. What else would you like to let us know? I know you've been recognized in many places and by many organizations. Would you like to share with our viewers some of the organizations that you have been recognized by?
You know, the work that I do is so important to me, and when you're busy on the ground and you're working and your head's kind of down and you're pushing to achieve the goals and the outcomes you need to achieve within communities and within different frameworks of programs and projects, it really always comes to me as a surprise when you get certain recognition, because that's not why you're doing the work that you do.
Truly.
And so I'm truly humbled by the recognition that I have had and received. And, you know, it also, I think, talks about, you know, a long-term foundation of trust, of putting in your authentic self into the projects that you do. And, you know, it's really something that I'm grateful for. But for me, it's really about putting your head down, getting your hands dirty, and ensuring that there's an end goal that is achieved, that we're able to really have impact, and we're able to connect with other human beings, connect with people, leave seeds of hope in those that we get to share moments of our lives with, and perhaps they will go out and they will replicate something that connects with them in some small way. And for me, that's what's important. So the many wonderful recognitions I've had, and the honor to be ambassador for many projects and international foundations and organizations is a wonderful thing. I will just mention perhaps two. The one is the Nelson Mandela Foundation, and they each one Feed One campaign, and I'm proud to be an ambassador for this program. And also the Earthshot Prize that was recently launched by Prince William. And this is a prize that seeks to really drive focus and attention on global and local solutions to the climate crisis that we see faced by the world over. And so to be an ambassador and to be a spokesperson for organizations such as this really is a humbling thing. There are many accolades that I'm really truly grateful for, and you know, people can search my name, they'd be able to find them there, but really it is about the work that needs to be done. It's about the impact that we need to have. And we find ourselves in a time and space where the world needs love and kindness. We need goodness that we pour into the world and to the people around us now more than ever. We need light and love, because I think that the world is missing these fundamental values, and our societies are pained by so much that is going on around us. And it's really because we lack values and institutions of moral compasses where we understand that we live for the greater good, and you know, we are able to only live because of our Creator and what work He wants us to do. And sometimes we steer away from that, but that truly is you know, what we should always work towards, and the reason we should always do the work that we're doing.
Again, after listening to you, I remember a very famous Urdu. Are you familiar with the language Urdu?
Very briefly, but yes.
Yeah, you know, there is a saying in Urdu, ibadat se jannat milta hai and khidmat se khuda milta hai. It means that when you do prayer and religious services, you know, like in the church, in the mosque, whatever, you get paradise. But when you do human services, you get God. You get God.
Wow.
Very
That is
interesting.
beautiful.
Yeah, you
That
do
is beautiful.
religious prayer services, you get paradise. And when you do the kind of human services that you do, you get God. And when you have God, you automatically got the world and you got paradise. So that is what you're all into.
Ah, Jazakallah. That's really beautiful. I'm going to remember that.
Yes, you remember that. And I'm sure that you definitely find that peace and that tranquility in your heart when you do these kind of services. You know, Catherine, there are a lot of people who have a lot of things materialistically speaking in this world, but they don't have peace. They don't have tranquility. They don't have that peace of mind. But doing the kind of things that you do, I'm sure that God has surely blessed you with that peace of mind.
Absolutely. I think that the one thing I get to go to bed at night and wake up every morning and be grateful for the life that I live. I have a peace of mind knowing that I've done all that I can do. And I think that so often we sacrifice far too much for corporate, to climb the corporate ladder, to be able to have fancy offices, fancy titles in the big corporate world and in different spaces that we occupy. But I think we forget that we need to internally, our souls need to be happy. We need to be at peace with ourselves. We need to understand that we are only as strong as the weakest link around us. And I've seen suffering. I've known suffering in my own life, but I've also seen it within the communities that I've entrenched myself. And I've seen suffering from the smallest child or the smallest baby to the eldest in the community. And the suffering of humanity is something that we must never, ever turn a blind eye to. It's something that we have to, for me, I can never walk away from the things that I have seen. And I've seen those things because God has a certain path and purpose for me. And so I have to constantly use my platform, my voice, and my ability to not only do the work, but to be able to share why it's important that we all try and live a little bit bigger than only ourselves. We live in silos. Instead, we need to live in a greater capacity to be able to touch the lives of others.
And I'm sure that's why God chose you and someone like you to do his kind of services to humanity. So you're not only an ambassador for these organizations that chose you to do it, but you're an ambassador of God. You are an ambassador of God to humanity. Tell us a little bit about that TV show or TV series that you were part of.
So One Day Leader is been an incredible program that for many, many years I had the privilege of being a part of. And this was a TV show run in South Africa for young South Africans to inspire leadership qualities for children, well, not children, but young people between the age of 17 to 35, and to try and inspire a culture of leadership, a culture of ownership of their own path. And so One Day Leader went on a national tour every year looking for these young leaders who had potential qualities and wanted to be a part of the show. And it was a reality TV show where we gave them actual challenges that their communities faced. And via this TV program, we tried to use the idea and the framework of reality TV to really address social issues in South Africa. It was really an incredible few years of doing this program. We then ultimately chose one leader at the end of the series, where that One Day Leader won a year of internship programs, money to fund projects that they were busy with, and really to address again the social challenges and social justice issues that they found in their very communities. These were children that came from really grassroots level communities, townships, rural areas, and they came from such vast backgrounds that the richness of the content of the show was something that will live with me always. It was really something about how do we empower young people who are honestly forgotten. And I think in a country like ours, where the challenges are so great, to be able to give this platform and this show primetime television slots on TV in South Africa on the national broadcaster was something that then inspired those that couldn't be a part of the show. And years later, from the first show, 3 years later, I'd walk into a community somewhere in a very, very far away community, away from the cities, and people would come up to me and say they always wanted to be a part of One Day Leader. They were so inspired by what we were able to achieve, what we did. They decided to take up certain issues within their communities and drive change. They started to not ask who's going to do something about a problem, but they started to ask, what am I going to do about certain challenges and problems? And so that was for us the fundamental aim, and we really achieved a lot of incredible success stories that were almost spin-offs from just the TV show. But the One Day leaders who were part of the show went on to really do great things, and I have no doubt will continue to be great leaders in our country.
Well, I don't think they could have had a better person with your kind of personality to be a judge on that TV show. So again, you would have been a phenomenal mentor for all these young leaders coming up there in South Africa. So, well, may God bless you and continue to bless you for this phenomenal services that God has chosen you to do.
In the Quran, in chapter 5, verse 67, Allah tells the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Ya ayyuhar Rasul, balligh ma unzila ilayka min rabbik, wa illam taf'al, fama balagta risalatahu. Very deep. Allah tells the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to spread the message of the Quran. And he told the Prophet, and if you do not spread the message, you did not fulfill the mission of the messenger. So you and I are followers of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If we can afford one Quran, help us join in distributing the Quran. So if you can't afford one Quran, do it. $3. 10 Quran, $30. 100 Quran, $300.
Fens, the single largest specialty retailer of residential and office furniture, consumer electronics, home appliances, and household items in Trinidad and Tobago. At Fens, we offer a large selection of high-quality products, honest and reliable service. We are passionate about serving you, and we're proud of the standard of excellence upheld by our knowledgeable staff, friendly delivery teams, and dedicated customer care associates. Visit Fens First, your friendly furniture, appliance, and electronic dealer since 1960.
Royal Bengal Trading, importer, exporter, wholesaler of Bangladeshi Indo-Pak groceries and spices. We specialize in various authentic Indian masalas, juices, flours, rices, and spices. We offer exclusive brands as Ocean Pearl, Shan, National, Tilda, Himani, and many, many more. We're located at 36B Coroni Savannah Road, Charleville, Chaguanas, Trinidad and Tobago. You can call us at 473-4676 or call 476-3117. Email us at wahabdk@gmail.com.